Man's perspective with a grounded setting and emotional spark. The first time I noticed her wasn't when she spoke. It was when she didn't. I was bent over the register at the little bookstore I work at, trying to wrestle a stubborn receipt out of the machine. Customers usually just tap their foot, roll their eyes, or check their phone when the line slows. But she stood there in silence, watching me with the kind of patience I wasn't used to. Her hair had a silver streak at the temple, not dyed away but carried like it belonged there. A long coat brushed against her calves, neat and deliberate, but it was her eyes that unsettled me. They didn't wander. They stayed fixed on me, steady, like she was measuring something I hadn't said yet. "Machine wins this round?" she asked, voice low, half amusement, half something else. I laughed too quickly, fumbling the roll back into place. "Yeah, it's not a fair fight." She smiled, but it wasn't the kind people throw around to be polite. It lingered a second too long, like she was filing my answer away. She slid her books across the counter, thick spines, heavy covers, titles that no one else in town bothered to order. Philosophy, some literature I'd only skimmed in college. "You're the first person I've seen who buys these," I said before I could stop myself. Her eyebrow lifted, subtle. "And you're the first person who actually noticed." I don't know why, but that landed heavier than it should have. I punched in the prices, trying not to look like my hands were trembling. She was older, at least twice my age, and yet something about the way she held herself made everyone else fade into the wallpaper. There was a pause then. Not uncomfortable, not exactly. Just thick, like the air between us slowed. She tapped the counter with one finger, as though she might say more but chose not to. "Bag or no bag?" I asked just to fill the silence. "No bag. I'll carry them," she said. And then softer, almost to herself, "I like feeling the weight." I caught that. I shouldn't have, but I did. And for reasons I couldn't explain, it felt like she'd said it to me. The rest of the day blurred. I stacked shelves, smiled at customers, answered calls, but her voice kept looping back in my head. The way she didn't rush. The way she seemed too self-assured for this small shop, like she belonged somewhere larger, but chose to be here anyway. Around closing, I saw her again. She wasn't browsing this time. She stood by the window, coat draped over one arm, thumbing through one of the books she'd just bought. No rush to leave, no obligation to be anywhere else. Just reading under the dim yellow light like the world outside wasn't moving. I thought about going over, asking if she needed anything, if she liked the book so far, even if she wanted water. But my feet stayed planted. Then, as if sensing me, she looked up. Our eyes met through the rows of stacked paperbacks. I expected her to glance away, but she didn't. She held it. Long enough that I felt my chest tighten. Long enough that I had to break it first, pretending to rearrange a pile of magazines. When I glanced back, she was already slipping her coat on. She left without saying another word, the bell above the door ringing once before the shop fell quiet again. That night, I kept replaying her voice in my head, like I missed something, or maybe wanted something. Updated prompt. The next afternoon she came back. Not for books this time. I was reshelving a stack of returned titles when I saw her at the counter, leaning against it like she owned the space. No books in her hand, just her coat draped over one arm and that same unshakable calm. "I think I need help," she said when I walked over. "With what?" I asked, expecting a question about store hours or ordering something. But she pulled a notebook from her bag, edges worn, corners bent. She flipped it open and slid it across the counter. Inside were messy annotations, circles, arrows, half-legible notes scrawled in the margins. "I've been trying to make sense of this. I thought, maybe you'd understand better than I do." I blinked down at it. It was a heavy text, one of the philosophy books she'd bought. I'd only skimmed it in college, but still, the thought of her asking me for help knocked the ground from under me. "You're my teacher now," she said lightly, but something in the way she said it, soft, under her breath, shifted the air between us. should have been nothing. Just words. But the way her finger tapped once against the page, the way her eyes lingered on me instead of the book, it felt like more. Too much. Sure, I muttered, sliding the notebook closer. My throat was dry. I tried to focus on the notes, to pretend it was just an academic moment, nothing more. But every detail about her pressed in on me. The faint scent of coffee on her sleeve, the neat half-moon of her nails, the slight crack in her voice when she explained what confused her. She wasn't untouchable here. She was uncertain, almost fragile in her admission. And that made her more dangerous than if she'd been perfectly composed. See, I read this part 3 times, and it still doesn't. She stopped herself, shaking her head. Sorry, I shouldn't bother you with this. You're not bothering me, I said too quickly. Our eyes met again. She didn't smile, not this time. She studied me with that same patience she'd shown the day before, and I swear the room got quieter, like the hum of the old lights above us dulled. I pointed to a passage, explaining it as best as I could. My voice stumbled here and there, but she didn't look at the book once. Just me, listening. By the time I closed the notebook, my pulse was erratic. I should have stepped back, given her the notes, ended it. Instead, I lingered, holding the book between us like it was the only thing keeping a boundary. You explained it better than the author, she said softly. Then her hand reached across. Not for the notebook, but to rest briefly against my arm as she took it back. It was nothing, a brush, but heat shot up my skin, and I almost said something reckless, something I'd regret. Instead, I swallowed hard, retreating behind the counter. Stay a little longer? She asked, quiet enough that it felt like a secret. And just like that, I knew I was already in too deep. Crossing the line beat. I told myself I wouldn't wait for her, but the lie fell apart the second I saw her walk in again. Same coat, same unhurried step. This time she didn't even browse. She came straight to the counter, set her bag down and said, "You're free now, aren't you?" I hesitated. Technically, yes. The store was empty, just me and the sound of the old fan whirring overhead. But the way she asked made it feel like I was agreeing to more than just time. She opened her notebook again, but she didn't slide it across the counter this time. She sat down in the chair by the side window and gestured for me to come over. Not as a customer, more like something else. I joined her, pretending it was nothing, just helping. But sitting that close, the faint warmth of her shoulder near mine, the perfume caught in the fabric of her scarf, it unsettled me. We bent over the page together, her handwriting tight and sharp. Our arms brushed once, then again. She didn't move away. "Do you ever feel," she asked suddenly, eyes still on the paper, "like the things you want most are the things you shouldn't?" The words punched straight through me. I should have laughed, shrugged it off, said something safe. But my mouth opened before my mind caught up. Every day, her eyes flicked to mine. The silence stretched, heavy. My chest ached from holding my breath. Then, my phone buzzed in my pocket, loud in the stillness. I scrambled for it, grateful for the break. But when I saw the screen, my relief twisted into nerves. My coworker calling. If I answered, I'd have to step away. If I didn't, I set it face down on the table. She noticed. Of course she did. "Someone important?" she asked. "No," I lied. For a moment, neither of us moved. I felt reckless, pinned by her gaze. Then her hand brushed mine, just slightly, like she'd been meaning to reach for the notebook but got caught halfway. She didn't pull back right away. "I shouldn't," I started, voice cracking. Her expression softened, a kind of regret flashing across it. "Neither should I." We both sat frozen, as if the world outside the shop had vanished. My hand twitched, wanting to close the distance, but the sound of the front door startled us. The bell chimed. A couple of students walked in, laughing too loud, heading toward the back shelves. The spell broke instantly, and I shot up from the chair, putting distance between us. My pulse thudded in my ears. She rose more slowly, slipping her notebook back into her bag. Her face was unreadable now, all the vulnerability tucked away again. As she passed me, close enough that I caught the faint brush of her sleeve, she whispered, "Maybe next time, we'll finish that thought." And I couldn't tell if it was a warning or a promise. The storm started just before closing. The kind that rattles the windows and turns the street outside into blurred streaks of light and rain. I was about to lock up when the bell over the door rang, and there she was, damp hair clinging to her temples, coat heavy with water. "You're still open," she said, almost out of breath. I nodded, trying not to stare too long. "Barely." She stepped inside, letting the door close behind her, the storm swallowing up the world outside. It was just us, the quiet shelves, and the rain hammering the glass. "I didn't want to go home yet," she admitted, voice softer now. She set her bag down on the counter and leaned both hands on it, like the weight of the day had finally caught up. Something inside me shifted. She wasn't polished tonight. Not the confident woman with sharp words and steady eyes. She looked tired, human, and that made her more magnetic than ever. "Rough day?" I asked, keeping my tone light. She gave a small, humorless laugh. "Rough life." Then she shook her head, eyes closing for a moment. "Sorry. You don't need to hear that." But I wanted to. I wanted every piece she was willing to give. I stepped closer before I realized I had. "You can tell me." Her eyes opened slowly, meeting mine. For once, she didn't guard herself. "You remind me of someone I used to know. Someone who made me feel like I wasn't invisible." The words hit harder than I expected. My throat tightened. "And now, she whispered, "I don't know what I'm doing." The silence after that was unbearable. I could hear the storm thrumming against the glass, the faint hum of the old lights above us, the uneven beat of my own heart. I wanted to say something that would break it, but nothing came out. She stepped closer, close enough that I felt the damp chill of her coat, close enough that her breath warmed the space between us. My instincts screamed to pull back, to protect the line we'd been circling for days. Instead, I stayed. "You should stop looking at me like that," she said suddenly. I blinked. "Like what?" "Like you want to say something you'll regret." Her words burned through me. My hands curled into fists at my sides, desperate to hold back what was clawing its way out. "Maybe I already do," I said before I could stop myself. Her breath caught. She didn't move. Neither did I. The space between us vibrated with everything we weren't saying, everything we shouldn't say. The thunder cracked outside, shaking the windows. Still, neither of us flinched. Her eyes locked on mine, steady, unreadable. And then she whispered, barely audible over the storm, "What happens if we don't stop?" The question hung there, heavier than the rain, heavier than the silence. And I couldn't answer. Not yet. The next day, I told myself I wouldn't look for her, that the storm and her words were a kind of fever dream, something that would burn itself out by morning. But when I unlocked the shop, she was already there, waiting under the awning, arms folded, eyes unreadable. "You open early," she said. "You're earlier," I replied, trying for a smile that didn't quite land. She stepped inside as if she'd been here all her life. No hesitation, no explanation. She walked to the same chair by the window and sat, resting her bag on her lap. I hovered, not sure what to say. The air between us carried last night's unfinished question like smoke still lingering after a fire. Finally, she broke the silence. "You remind me too much of him." My chest tightened. "Of who?" Her eyes stayed fixed on the rain-slick glass. "My first student. Years ago. He was your age, and I let things go too far." The words dropped like stones. My pulse spiked. I tried to breathe, to steady myself, but her voice carried a tremor I hadn't heard before. I thought I learned from it, that I could keep distance, that I'd never. She shook her head, clutching the strap of her bag. But then you came along. It wasn't what I expected. Not a confession, not exactly, but a revelation that twisted everything between us. What had felt like uncharted territory suddenly had history, shadows, warnings. I'm not him, I said quietly, though my voice faltered. Her gaze snapped to mine. No, you're worse. The words stung, but the way she said them, raw, almost desperate, made it clear they weren't meant to wound. They were an admission. Before I could respond, the door chimed. The sound jolted us apart. A girl stepped in, no older than me. She carried herself with easy confidence, her smile too knowing. "Auntie," she said brightly, crossing the shop in quick strides. "Auntie." The word echoed. I froze. The woman stiffened but managed a thin smile. "You shouldn't be here. I was nearby," the girl said, eyes flicking from her to me with unsettling precision. "Thought I'd see who keeps you staying so late these days." Her gaze lingered on me longer than polite, curiosity sharp in it. My throat went dry. The older woman rose quickly, putting herself between us. "He's just helping me with some books." The niece tilted her head, lips curling. "Books? Sure." The tension was unbearable. An invisible thread pulled too tight. My hands curled against the counter, desperate to do something. Anything. "I should go," I muttered, though my voice cracked. But the woman turned sharply. "No. Stay." Her command cut through the room, startling even her niece. For a second, none of us moved. And then her eyes found mine, blazing with something between fear and need. Whatever secret lay between us, it wasn't hidden anymore. And the question wasn't whether we'd cross the line. It was who would catch us when we did. After her niece left, the shop felt different. Like the walls themselves had heard too much. I tried to keep busy, stacking a pile of hardcovers, straightening displays, but my hands shook. She lingered by the window, arms crossed, gaze unfocused. The storm outside had cleared, but the tension hadn't. Finally, she spoke. "You weren't supposed to see that part of my life." I set the books down harder than I meant to. "You think I don't know I shouldn't be here? That I haven't been telling myself to stop since the first day?" Her head snapped toward me. Her face wasn't calm now, it was bare, vulnerable. "Then why didn't you?" I laughed, sharp, almost bitter. "Because you don't look at me like everyone else does. You make me feel—" The words stuck in my throat. Too much, too heavy. She took a step closer. "Say it." "I can't," I whispered. "Yes, you can." The force in her voice nearly broke me. I turned, met her eyes, and finally let it out. "You make me feel like I matter, like I'm not just passing through life unnoticed. And I don't want to lose that." Her breath caught. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then she closed the distance, not touching me yet, but close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating off her. "You'll regret this," she whispered. "Maybe," I said, "but I'll regret not saying it more." Her hand lifted, hesitated, then rested lightly against my cheek. It was a fragile touch, trembling, like she wasn't sure if she had permission. My chest tightened, every instinct telling me to lean into it, to close the space completely. But she pulled back suddenly, pacing a step away, hands pressed to her temples. "You don't understand. I've ruined things before. I can't." "Then don't," I said, my voice firmer now. "Don't run this time." She froze, back still turned. The silence stretched thin, brittle. When she turned again, her eyes glistened, not with weakness, but with the weight of every wall she'd kept up for years. "If I let this happen, it won't be casual. It won't be something you walk away from." I swallowed hard. "Good. Then it'll matter." For the first time, she smiled, but it wasn't easy or carefree. It was small, pained, but real. She stepped back toward me, slow and deliberate. This time, when her hand found mine, She didn't pull away. And I didn't let go. The storm outside had passed, but in that quiet moment, it felt like we'd walked into another one. One we were choosing together. Neither of us said the word love. It was too soon, too dangerous. But in the silence that followed, holding on to each other like the floor might collapse, it was the only thing either of us meant. The next morning, the bookstore felt like another world. Same shelves, same dust in the corners, same steady hum of the old ceiling fan. But nothing between us was the same. She came in quietly, not as a customer this time, but as someone who belonged. She moved slower than usual, fingertips brushing across the spines of books she didn't even look at. When she reached me, she didn't speak right away. Neither did I. It was enough at first just standing there. Finally, she sighed. I didn't sleep last night. I forced a nervous smile. Me neither. Her laugh was small, almost tired. But it wasn't the kind of laugh that pushed me away. It was the kind that admitted she'd been thinking the same thoughts I had, replaying the same moments. You've changed things, she said, voice quiet, almost lost under the fan's whir. I told myself I was done with this, with letting people close. And now, here you are. I wanted to tell her I hadn't planned on any of it either, that I hadn't meant to get pulled into her orbit, hadn't meant to notice the way she carried herself, or the way she saw through me when no one else bothered. But instead, I just said, maybe it's not about planning. She studied me for a long time, not like before when she was testing me or pushing me. This time it was softer, like she was allowing herself to see me clearly. I don't want to hurt you, she whispered. Then don't, I said simply. Her hand found mine again, not tentative, not fleeting. This time it stayed. The weight of her niece's interruption still lingered, the memory of her confession about the past still sharp. But standing there with her, I realized none of it erased what we'd found. It only made it more real, fragile, risky, but real. Maybe we'd ruin it. Maybe we wouldn't. But for once, I wasn't afraid of that. For once, it felt worth the risk. She squeezed my hand, eyes glistening, and said, "You see me." The words weren't grand, but they landed like a promise. I nodded, unable to trust my voice. That day, we didn't hide behind books or excuses. We sat together in the shop, long after the last customer left, just talking about regrets, about choices, about the lives we thought we'd be living by now. There were pauses, awkward silences, even a few contradictions. But beneath it all, there was something steady. The quiet understanding that neither of us was invisible anymore. When the evening light slanted across the floor and she finally stood to leave, she pressed a hand to my cheek, her thumb lingering there. No goodbye, no dramatic confession. Just a look that said everything words couldn't. And I knew whatever came next, I wouldn't be the same.